Everywhere around the world there are police forces that help maintain order and sustain the law. When forces from two nations come together, something amazing occurs. This is International SWAT.
My name is Dave Acosta, and I have a very unique background.
Dave Acosta started out his career serving as the point man for his SWAT team in Las Vegas. Along the way, he started consulting and training Mexican police forces on anti-kidnapping tactics. Consulting was going well for Dave, so he decided to take a different route with his career.
I left law enforcement as an actual deputy. I left in 2003, came to Utah, and I started a nonprofit. All we did was teach police officers how to survive. No matter how bad things got, we taught them how to survive, but it was mental. It wasn't just the tactics. It was, how do I overcome? How do I overcome? Even if I'm going to bleed to death, I don't want to go out a victim. I want to fight to the end. So I started writing articles, and I actually produced a program that was adopted by Nevada Post, which is the police officer standard and training. They certified it, Utah accepted it, Arizona accepted it, and the next thing I knew, I was teaching all over the nation.
Dave's consulting and training program really started to get attention, and he soon started to make some very important connections.
Also, that gave me an opportunity. I was approached by a group of former SEALs in 2004, and they asked me about my program, and then if I wouldn't be willing to work with them on some contracting stuff. And then, literally in the blink of an eye, I'm in Iraq working with SEALs. So that was a huge jump. It was a completely different environment. It wasn't law enforcement. It was trying not to get ambushed and killed at close range by a bunch of guys with AKs. I realized there was another level of operating than what I had been used to. And it was amazing. It was how the way that their brain worked and the way that their team concept was applied or executed was at a completely different level than even a SWAT team in Vegas, and it really impressed me. And so I started taking a lot of notes, and I spent a lot of time just watching these guys. And I got to tell you, I don't know a lot of people that have been as blessed as me to be embraced by those guys in that environment. We became close friends. They taught me fieldcraft. They taught me how to survive on the streets of Baghdad and Kabul, Afghanistan, and everywhere else. I learned so much from those guys. So I started to think, and this is the process, what can I bring to the table to someone that needs it? If someone needs training, what can I bring to the table that they've never seen before?
Dave's program flourished into a new hybrid of tactical training that was very unique. As he continued to teach and consult, he continued getting attention from law enforcement from all parts of the world.
My name started to get around. I started doing work in a lot of different countries throughout Africa, Latin America, of course Kabul or Afghanistan generally speaking, and Iraq. And I had a chance encounter with someone from the Brazilian Civil Police at the SHOT Show, and he had already heard about me. He approached me and he said, is there any way I could get you to come and share some information? And the first year I went, we had 50 some odd students, and I basically was just sharing what I would call a hybrid of tactics for counter-kidnap, counter-ambush, law enforcement tactics, but different than we use in the U.S., more suited to the Brazilians and what they saw every day. Well, of all the people I've taught all over the world, the Brazilians were the one place where there was no goofing off, there was no chit-chat. As soon as I stood up to talk, it was quiet. These guys, they wanted every piece of information that they could get and then evaluate. And I was so impressed that I literally, out of the side of my mouth, and I don't know if that's the right term, but I shouldn't have said it because I didn't have permission. But I just said, I will take 4 of you to the U.S., to a U.S. SWAT school.
Having caught all of them off guard, none of them believed him, but Dave was determined to keep his word.
I said, look, if you think you want to do this, today at lunch, there's a test, and it will give you a little look into what it's going to take for you to make it to the U.S. as far as the physical test. And then tonight there'll be a shooting test, but you have to stay after class to do the shooting test. So I'm trying to see if they'll skip lunch and do the test. That will tell me who's really vested, right? Same thing with dinner and after dinner, stay here another 2 hours and take a shooting test just to see if you would even qualify.
24 Brazilian officers showed up for the test, but ultimately only 4 of them made it that year.
So at that point, I moved on and I had some relationships in Salt Lake City, and they had room, and they're like, yeah, absolutely, we'll take them. And that's where it started. The first 4 came. They did outstanding. They exceeded everybody's expectations in the Salt Lake City school. And now it's grown from there. Now they've come back on to sniper schools, and they've exceeded, everybody's expectation in sniper school, and the relationship is continuing to grow. And now both Utah County, who put on the sniper school that they went to, and Salt Lake City have basically opened their doors and said, we can take, 4 to 6 guys every year in these schools. We love having them.
Now with Dave's class in Brazil reaching upwards of 300 attendees, his offer still stands at the end of every year.
We put out some information on the qualification, which was going to be even harder than what they did that day.
First, there was a shooting test, very difficult shooting, short range, long range, pistol only, very short time for the exercises, and then a physical test where there was 1 hour fluctuation, water, and 5-kilometer running, all equipped. It was summer in Brazil, so it was like 40 degrees Celsius. I don't know how much that is in Fahrenheit, about 100, I think, yeah. Black clothes, vests under the sun. That was fun. Gas, going in a little room with gas, stand there as long as you could. Push-ups, pull-ups, all that kind of thing. It was a pretty tough test, yeah.
Only 6 people made it. We had 8 slots. We could have brought more. There were people that were close, but it wasn't worth it to me. If you don't meet the standard, you don't come. Close isn't good enough, and we don't do anything for politics. We don't bring you because we like you. So those guys, those 6 that were here, really earned it, and they worked really hard.
After saving for their airfare to get here to Utah, the Brazilian officers began their training, and although they were eager, it would only prove to be one of the toughest training experiences of their lives.
It's a fairly physical and mentally challenging school. We cap at about 40 participants a year, and usually between 3 and 5 end up dropping out due to just not being able to physically handle the class or mentally capable of going through it. Throughout the process of the 5 days, it goes, builds on scenarios every evening where all the team, all 40 participants or whoever's left in the school kind of come together and work through a situation and resolve it.
They put you through a very rigorous physical training. And the tactical training also is very demanding physically, and you don't have time to recover. You're training like from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. the other day, and you sleep 4 hours. So if you're not physically fit, you just can't handle it.
The school's built from day one, kind of what we call a big gut check right at the beginning. There's a pretty immense physical run. With obstacles, getting through, getting over.
The training was rough, demanding, and exhausting, both physically and emotionally.
22 hours of exercising with almost no stop.
It's hard to explain the school unless you're actually going through it.
You just either drop out or pass out in the middle of the thing, so it's necessary.
Their departments didn't pay for them to come here. The equipment, the training is minimal that they get in Brazil.
We have here ammunition that we don't have in our country. So it's almost like a real situation. It was very, I think it's very important.
So these guys and gals are driven. They want to know this stuff. They want to learn it. And they want to take it home so that their agencies and their brotherhood is safe.
I feel excited to go back and bring this opportunity down to my colleagues so I can share what I have learned with them.
Yeah, they showed up prepared for the school. Even with a slight language barrier, they understand English fine. They speak English way better than I speak Portuguese, that's for sure. But they're physically fit, they're mentally very, very tough. I haven't seen any of them look like they're even considering quitting. They've adapted and overcome very well, and I would say they're probably definitely some of the top students in the class this year.
During the training, something amazing happened, and bonds were forged.
And by the time this group was done with that, the camaraderie there was pretty impressive. They, hugs and to everyone, they were all, you could tell they were a team.
It was a great opportunity for all of us to be here. It's exceptionally joyful to be among the police officers from Utah. We were extremely welcomed.
Anywhere you go in law enforcement, whether it's in this country, in another country, we trade patches, we trade coins. Like you talk about, it's a brotherhood, and that brotherhood it just comes from, I think, service, being willing to step up and do things that maybe others wouldn't.
There are no borders when it comes to police work. We're all brothers and sisters together. That's the way Utah County Sheriff sees it. That's the way that I hope Spanish Fork Police Department sees it. I know that philosophy is actually executed in real life because the SWAT team here is made up of agencies that all come together.
And I think that's what creates that bond. Even, from day one, within minutes, we consider them brothers.
These type of bonds were not just flourishing within the police force.
The thing that shocked them was they got here and they were wondering, how much do they pay for the housing? And I had explained to them in the first place, there's no price. It's free. You're going to stay in my neighborhood with some neighbors. And they could not wrap their heads around that.
So as far as the community support, it was impressive to see, neighbors take them in, let them stay, not even knowing who they were. Because after they had finished the school, just their feedback, some of their feedback was, we don't get this in Brazil. People aren't as welcoming. So when they first got here, it was kind of maybe a little bit of a shock to their system because they didn't know, what do these people want from me? Why are they doing this for me? And until, through this process, they realized that it's because they care and they want to do it, not because there's something, something to be expected. So it was neat to see that as well.
The community received us in a very kind and caring way. They made us feel at home. We thought that because we had been hosted by a Mormon family, that their kindness was particularly theirs. But we realized that it wasn't a family thing. It was a community thing. We also thought that there would be some resistance from the SWAT team members, because we are not from here and we are taking some spots from the local cops. But we were mistaken. Everyone received us in a very receptive way. They took us and accepted us into their teams. We were a part of their teams from the beginning, regardless of language barriers and whatever else we came across.
It's coming from the law enforcement community all the way down to the residential community here in Spanish Fork that are participating in helping these people.
I mean, they were so serious. What's the catch? And I was having trouble understanding them. I'm like, I don't understand. For what? How come people are so nice? How come they're letting strangers into their homes? Did you know that those people are going to be gone for a few days and they said for us just to stay there anyway?
We had to leave the next day. We had planned a trip to go to St. George for 5 days. So we said, just take care of our house and just lock it up when you go. And they said, what? Are you serious? Like, people don't do that in Brazil. Nobody does that.
And they were just floored with that.
I gave them that trust up front, and that really meant a lot to them, and they talked about that.
Those relationships, every day, they grew.
That openness and warmness towards them was very shocking because they would not do the same because of the environment that they live in.
Since the beginning, they trusted us without accepting anything in return, and that is very unusual in Brazil.
One guy, he said the first night he couldn't believe how nice people were. He said he slept with one eye open because he didn't know if he was going to get murdered or baptized before he woke up. I thought that was really funny. He's just, he was waiting for the catch.
I had a feeling just to write him a note that just says, welcome, here you are family. And I wrote it in Portuguese, obviously from Google Translator, because I don't know Portuguese. But just wrote each of them a note and put some bottled water and just tried to make their rooms cozy. And they came home and saw him, and they talked about that the whole month, that they just felt like family.
Getting to know Limi and how soft-hearted she really is. She has such a way about her, but then deep down inside, she has such a drive, which is it's so contrasting.
She's like a sister, but then she's like a protector too. Like, she would come in and like ask me how my day was, and honestly, like, she's just so sweet and open. Like, she wasn't, and I didn't expect that.
When she would talk to us about why she was a police officer, because of course that came up, it was definitely that she saw the need to protect.
I like the, how can I say it? It's not the risk, it's that kind of feel that you are doing something important and helping people. I guess that's right.
Leo kind of took charge because he spoke English very well, and you could tell that Santana had some struggles with the language, and that was kind of a barrier. I said to him that I speak Spanish, and if that would help at all. And he said that yes, he speaks Spanish as well. Portuguese and Spanish are similar in a lot of ways. And so from that point on, his countenance kind of changed a little bit, and that I think he felt a little bit of relief that that barrier in a way was kind of gone. So the two of us from that point forward were able to speak together in Spanish, and we had some great conversations. Learned quite a bit about him.
He was really comfortable around Kevin after a little while, so he really opened up and told us hilarious stories, and he has a fun personality.
He says there was an occasion that he got home from work at 6 o'clock, and he'd gone into the bathroom and was cleaning up and getting ready for dinner and whatnot. His wife and his daughter were in the other room just getting ready with dinner, and he heard some gunshots outside their apartment, really close. So he grabbed his weapon, ran out the door as quick as he could, and saw a car driving by that had opened fire on another car. And there were two other guys that were getting out of the vehicle, and he addressed them as a police officer, and they turned and opened fire on him. And he, with the training that he had, quickly took him out, took care of business. And later on, as his police chief and a few others were there taking photographs and looking at the crime scene, his police chief looked at him and said, "Santana, now might be a good time for you to go into your house and put some clothes on." And that's when he looked around and realized he was in his underwear. And Santana got a kick out of that. He thought it was quite a fun story. But
we played badminton together, and they just like give my kids piggyback rides, and you know, it was really cute how they interacted. And Santana has a 12-year-old daughter, and one night he tucked in my daughter, and you know, he doesn't speak a lot of English, but he just tucked her in with the covers, and he kissed her forehead, and he said, "I love you." And it was so sweet, such a sweet, and you could tell that he missed his daughter, but was, you know, really connecting with our kids. So
it was such an awesome experience. She did makeup with the girls and hair, and like Tracy said, we did not have a ton of time with her, but every moment and chance that we did have any kind of time with her whatsoever, we were spending it trying to learn about her and have her kind of incorporate in what we do, you know, on a daily basis at home.
The thing that impressed them most was the consistency. What they saw in the Oilers home, they saw in the Wellings home. What they saw in the Acosta home, they saw in the Jones home. What they saw in those homes, they saw with Lieutenant Mike Brower as an individual, as a person. What they saw with people wanting to help them and love them and see them succeed, they saw it with their instructors at Utah County. Yeah, they'd yell at them. Yeah, they'd get on their butt. That's part of the thing. But they knew that it was always because these guys genuinely wanted them to succeed because they don't want them to get hurt back in Brazil.
It was a very important experience for us because we weren't expecting this type of kindness. People who didn't even know us received us in a way that was perfect in every sense, giving us a home, willing to help us in any way possible to make our stay in Utah more pleasant.
Now, the SWAT school was awesome, all of it, really fun and really educational for us. But what most impressed me, what I enjoyed the most, was the involvement of the community in it. Like one of the days there was an active shooter drill in an actual school where children and teachers and parents and members of the community donated their time on a Sunday night to act as the victims and as the shooters for us to train. And afterwards, we got up on a stage, they clapped for us and thanked us for the effort those cops were doing to protect them. And then as we went out, the kids were standing their hands to touch our hands like we were professional athletes. So we don't get that everywhere. I had never seen that.
And I would introduce them in Spanish Fork. The people that they would be introduced to here would hug them and say, thank you. Thank you for what you do. And these guys were literally crying because no one had ever thanked them for what they did.
That community that steps forward and says, we support you. It means a lot to us, obviously, and it gives that drive to become better, to be better trained.
The community's support was the most important. We were very well received, as if they were our own families in Brazil.
Yeah, I think, for all intents and purposes, we felt close enough to Alini to, consider her part of our family, and she knows that she's completely welcome to come back.
She is no longer just Alini to us. When she first showed up, she became Auntie Alini, and the kids knew that and just absolutely loved every minute that each of us could have with her.
Their primary objective to come to the U.S. was to go through the SWAT school. Oddly enough, it became more of a secondary thing after they, were able to spend time with us and other people in the community.
They're leaving more affected by the way that the community received them, the way that they've been treated here. Santana, he says, I understand embracing and loving and protecting and helping and taking care of your own. I don't understand a community where a perfect stranger comes in and doesn't have to show proof that he's a member of this community.
Santana mentioned to me the day before they left that he struggled with deciding to come and do this SWAT school. He lost his mother on Christmas Day, December 25th, just this last year. And she actually died in his arms, and he and his mom were very, very close from what he told me. And it was a very difficult thing for him to experience, and he was really struggling not only with his decision to come up here, but he said he was struggling with his career. He was having issues at work. He wasn't able to focus after she had died like he did before, and he was going to postpone and just not come. And they convinced him otherwise, and he ended up coming, but he still said that he arrived in Utah with kind of a down attitude. He still felt down. He still felt somewhat depressed about having lost his mom. But he said those first few days in our home and in the community where he felt so welcomed and loved totally changed his perspective, and he recognized that God is still there and God does still love him, which he said he doubted after his mom died. And so just to be able to feel that love and acceptance within the community really changed his perspective. And he mentioned to me the day before he left that it's changed everything for him, and that he's going back with a greater attitude towards his job and towards life in general. So I thought that was a great thing to hear.
Because in their wildest dreams, this didn't exist. We stood on the cross and looked out over the valley, and they'd already had some amazing experiences. And it was emotional because they looked at that view from up there on the cross, and they're just like, You only see this in movies. This is something you look out and you go, oh my gosh, the perfect city, the perfect valley, the perfect community. It doesn't really exist. It's in the movies. Yet here they were looking over that view and knowing that that community is now theirs, that they were brought in, accepted as a member of that community. That will never change. They made lifelong associations and established lifelong relationships that will never, never change. So the community of Spanish Fork has profoundly affected 10 Brazilian police officers who will never be the same. They'll be better, and they'll know that they can raise the standard personally, professionally, and in their communities because of something they saw here. They know it's real. That's the gift that this community has given to these guys. It's really cool.